this weekend to take on the Toronto Blue Jays in what is now a battle for first place over the weekend. We will see how the Orioles bats do against the stellar pitching of the Blue Jays of late. And, of course, the Ravens on the backfields in Owings Mills. Luke Jones out there sweating it out. Any breaking news will happen first on the WNST Tech Service. That is all brought to you by our friends at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And, of course, Dennis will be here on Thursday driving you home from 3 until 5. But also, in addition to all this baseball and NFL, there's a college football season about to kick off. A little more quiet around here in these parts. We did have a Big Ten press conference and a media day earlier in the week, and DJ Durkin's around, and Jim Harbaugh wants no part of him, but he let him go. And Lord knows it's tough being a Terp right now in the Big Ten with Ohio State and Michigan State, Michigan on the schedule. This guy knows all about college football. He covers it intensely and intently for ESPN out of Bristol and out of parts of Eastern Tennessee. He is Chris Lowe of ESPN. You can follow his journey at CLow, and that's not like CeeLo Green. That's CLOW ESPN out on Twitter. Always a pleasure to have you on. Chris, welcome back, man. Happy college football season. You've been busy the last couple of weeks, right?
Yep, and it's almost here. You're right. All those junkies out there who've been sort of counting down the days, I guess we're inside a month, or right at a month, the first game.
Well, I cover the NFL, and we have these lousy, god-awful preseason games that we buy tickets for, and we go out and see all that. College football clearly is never going to do that. It's never been done. But it really does sort of affect the month leading up to the first game, but it really is more like Christmas where you really don't know what you're going to see on Labor Day weekend when these teams come out, and some of them take on cream puffs, but for any of the teams that take on real games in week one, it really is a tightrope walk, isn't it?
It is, and look at this year, man. I mean, you look at the opening weekend of the lineup in college football. I mean, just about every conference has at least one, in some cases two, marquee matchups with teams going out. You got SC and Alabama playing, for instance. You got Florida State and Ole Miss playing. There's so many games there. Wisconsin and LSU playing up at Lambeau Field. You talk about a novelty in college football.
I didn't even know about that.
Everywhere you look in college football, there's that first week or so. There's just great matchups.
And there's going to be feelings hurt and championships on the line even in week one, which really does make it different. And I think for people who love the college game, they sort of love that do or die thing that goes on. And week one's probably the most treacherous of all of it.
It is. Now, the one thing about the playoffs that I like is if you're willing to go out and play, marquee teams. Let's say, for instance, look at SC. Look at their schedule. They've got the toughest schedule in college football. Not only do they play Alabama in a neutral site, they play Notre Dame to end the season, plus they play a killer Pac-12 schedule. Let's say SC plays Alabama tough, doesn't win, all right, but they go on through the Pac-12 and win the Pac-12 championship with that schedule, and they've only got one loss. I think they're a shoo-in to get into the playoff simply because they've gone out and they've played a tough schedule. And I think having gone through that mock exercise in Dallas that the committee goes through, shrink the schedule trumps everything else.
Well, and I guess that's where Maryland getting out of the ACC and, having this emerging superpower in Clemson at this point in the ACC. The ACC's gotten kind of better as Maryland has left, but I don't miss it as a fan, and I think it's going to be cool over the next 5, 10, 20 years to see what Michigan becomes, obviously to see what Maryland's trying to build. Maryland's very much on the periphery of all of this at this point. I don't think there's any expectations. There aren't even expectations locally, but I know Kevin Plank and Under Armour have some expectations, and I know DJ Durkin has some expectations coming in. How does Maryland sort of break through some sort of ceiling to be able to go out and play with an Ohio State or Michigan? I guess it all begins with the kind of facility and then the recruiting that can be done here locally.
Right, and listen, there's money there, and that's the good thing. DJ Durkin, I don't think, goes there unless he thinks there's the kind of support financially and they're going to invest in the program. And I think they've done that. I think they will do that. They've got to continue to recruit at a high level and attract kids. I like what DJ's done, though. When you look at their staff, he's brought in guys, and this tells me that he's very secure, to quote the commercial, secure in his own skin. He's brought in guys who've been former head coaches. And I think when you want to lean, you can lean on those guys for all sorts of things, whether it's Mike London, Scott Schaefer. Those guys will help when you're making decisions, trying to figure out what kind of players you want to bring in. which direction you want to go. I think the first thing Maryland's got to do is everybody knows DJ Durkin's got a defensive background. They've got to get it right offensively, and that's going to take at least probably one more class to bring in the kind of guys offensively that it takes to compete week in and week out in that league. They've got to throw the football better. And I know you're going to ask me too. They've got to throw it better. Gosh, they were 120-something in passing efficiency last year. And they've got to be better at taking care of the football and gaining some turnovers. When you're just starting to sort of put a program back together, and I think one of the key stats, period, in college football is always turnover ratio. But when you line up against teams and you know there's going to be a talent differential, you better win the turnover margin. Those are the two things this year. Gaining more turnovers, taking care of it, and figuring out a way to be a little bit more efficient throwing the football.
Well, I don't think it's just a Maryland problem. Hell, half the teams in the NFL are looking for a quarterback. There aren't enough quarterbacks to go around the NFL, and probably there aren't enough quarterbacks to go around college football and certainly the Big Ten. That really is a difference maker. If unless Maryland gets a quarterback, they're never going to consistently be competitive in the Big Ten.
No, and it's the college is different. I mean, you can have a kid who's not an NFL passer, but a guy that can break defenses down, run the football, make key throws, get them, move the chains on third down, but be a threat to run the football. And we see more and more in college football, those multidimensional guys really are the kinds of quarterbacks. You talk to defensive coaches about those guys, and they hate having to face those guys as much as they do a guy who can sit back there in the pocket and pick you apart. So I think that's the key, is having a guy who can do a little bit of everything at the quarterback position and gives you a chance to win.
Chris Lowe covers all things college football for ESPN and the Worldwide Leader. You can follow his journey at CLOW ESPN out on Twitter. That's CLOW ESPN. Let's get on to coaches here, because we talk about Durkin, we talk about the Big Ten and all of these great coaches and the teams that played well last year. Michigan is interesting because 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we weren't talking about Michigan at all. When Maryland moved into the Big Ten, yeah, they're Michigan, but they're kind of asleep and a little bit dormant, kind of like Penn State is right now. Boy, Michigan has really moved to the head of class. I mean, Jim Harbaugh was here. He had John over at Patterson Park and running kids around and doing his, touring the country in some sort of recruiting way, pissing off a lot of people along the way, which is a Harbaugh family tradition as well. Some thoughts about what he brings, and they are sort of behind Alabama and Clemson. They're the team everybody's watching and talking about, at least here in the offseason, and it's happened incredibly quickly in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, Jim's done everything off the field at this point to get Michigan back to being relevant nationally. I think he possibly could do that, and then some. Listen, Michigan had become boring, for all its national brand. Over the last, I don't know how many years, going back to Rich Rod and then Brady Hoke, it really had become a boring program, and has been now for a while. Jim comes in, and he's certainly changed that. As you say, he's shaken it up. He hasn't been afraid to step on toes. They're recruiting at a higher level. He's got professional wrestlers up at his National Signing Day celebration. Now he's sort of got to take this momentum that he's built and this buzz surrounding that program. And I don't doubt that he'll do this, but it's still going to be, it's on the field results where he's going to be a judge, not sort of what kind of sideshow he's created. He's got to beat Michigan State. For everything that we've heard and everything that's happened on that around that program, they still lost to Michigan State last year. Granted, it was a weird play at the end of the game. They still lost to Ohio State. Those are the two teams that he's going to be judged on. They've got to start beating those teams, and I think certainly this year, in his second year, he wants to beat at least one of those teams.
Now, you did a piece this week at ESPN about asking coaches who they would want their sons to play for, which is a great question. It's a question I've often asked as to whether back in the day I would send my son to play basketball for Gary Williams or football for, name the coach of the day, whether it was Lou Holtz or Bobby Bowden or whomever. Bob Stoops got those votes, right? I mean, and there's a guy there that has always been a little bit of a rah-rah guy and a player's coach and all that stuff, and they're not always on the platform of winning a national championship there, but that's pretty high praise from top coaches around the country.
Well, coaches are smart. They know what coaches. They look at longevity, support, how a coach treats his kids. Bob's going into his 18th season at Oklahoma, and this is stunning, a stunning stat to me. I don't know if we'll see this again in college football. Ever since Bob got there in 1999, he's had the same president the same AD, the same triumvirate there, president, AD, head football coach, and he's won 11 games or more, 11 of the last of his 17 seasons. So I think that consistency, and that solidarity, coaches are looking for that. Whether they're going to send their sons, I got a lot of that when people talked about why it was Bob, and a lot of the way he sort of treats kids, the way he coaches kids, not only on the field but off the field, teaches them values, takes care of them, always has their back. I think as a parent, you want to know that when you send a kid to play for a coach, he's going to discipline them, he's going to give them the tough love, but he's also going to have their back, and he's not going to throw them under the bus. And everybody I talked to that picked Bob, they talked about that.
Well, he's also a guy who's not looking for the next job either, right? I mean, that's
right.
part of the game here. And I think that we talk about Harbaugh, part of the thing of him going to Michigan is I don't think he's going to leave. I think he's going to be there 10 or 15 years. And for that, we certainly had turmoil here in Maryland last year, right? I mean, the coach that went out on the trail and recruited the kid that says, I'm going to be here is no longer there anymore. And we see that, even at Baylor, and I know it's a different situation there, but, when kids sign up to play, they just want to know the coach is actually going to be there for 3 or 4 years, right?
They sure do. And then Bob's got that going for him. As I said, this will be his 18th season. And he's had chances to go. He was very close. I spent part of spring practice with Bob right before the 15th season, before last year. And he told me he was very close at one point to going to Florida. I guess it's when Urban left to go to Ohio State. And he said that was, he coached there under Spurrier, was the defensive coordinator back in the 90s. He said that's the only one in college ball that had tempted him. Now, he's had a couple offers in the NFL, too, that he's looked at pretty seriously. But he's decided that he likes it better where he is. His kids are teenagers. He's been able to raise his family in one spot, which is unheard of, in the coaching ranks in this day and age. That you have an entire family that goes same elementary, same junior high, same high school. He says you can't put a value on that. I think the fact that Oklahoma has reinvested in the program, they are getting ready to open an updated, renovated stadium, new facilities for the players, training room, locker room, all those things that coaches think, and they are, the player amenities that bring players to your campus. Oklahoma has done that, and Bob's answer to me was, why go anywhere else? I have it all right here.
We are chatting with Chris Lowe. He covers all things ESPN college football. He is CeeLo ESPN out on Twitter. Last thing for you, Chris. Give me a couple of programs that you're looking at, that you're interested in. Not Clemson, not Alabama, not Michigan, not teams we're all talking about. Some teams that are in the bottom 20, so to speak, or the next 20 that could really make a move here that you would look to in the middle of the season and say they're going to be a mover and a shaker.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think Washington on the Pac-12. Chris Peterson in his third year. We all know what he did at Boise State. He returned most of the key pieces in a defense that was the Pac-12's best unit last year. They've got two of the best sophomores in college football. Their quarterback, Jake Browning, running back, Myles Gaskin. I think they have a chance to really be that team in the Pac-12 that sort of comes from under the radar and has a chance to win it all. Tennessee in the SEC. Tennessee's been a football wasteland now for about a decade or more. Ever since they pushed Philip Fulmer out.
And by the way, that's tough in your part of the world, right?
Right.
I got friends in Nashville that have been, season ticket holders, and they make the drive all. It stinks when you really begin a year not believing you can win. That's kind of tough times in Tennessee after all those years, right?
And this is the first year really probably, I don't know, maybe since 2005, that fans have felt like that Tennessee goes into the season with a roster and the depth and the experience in key spots that they have a chance to at the very least, win the SEC East and play for an SEC championship. And I don't know that anybody has felt like that at Tennessee in a long, long time. But those are two schools that I think that jump out at me. And I'm always interested to see with new leadership, because we know there's players in that area. It's going to maybe take a while. But I like Mark Richt. I've always felt like he is, even though he's a guy that got a lot of grief at Georgia because he didn't win SEC championships or enough of them. It will be very interesting to see what he does at Miami. His alma mater, we know the recruiting base is there. He may be able to wake up that sleeping giant and surprise some people.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I think they are certainly a program everyone's watching, and I just don't mean on the ESPN 30 for 30, right? Where I'm still waiting for the third and fourth installment of Luther Campbell and the U. It's always interesting there. Chris, great having you on, man. I do appreciate the journey. I know you're going to be next couple weeks running around and doing all this. Any hope for Maryland? I mean, thoughts about winning any sort of games this year?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think they will be one of those teams in my mind that has a chance to be on the periphery to make a bowl game. You know, I think there's key games, you know, the non-conference schedule, but Purdue, I think, is a key game. They got to be Purdue, beat Rutgers, maybe beat, say, a Minnesota or pull off an upset somewhere, and I think they've got a chance to get to a bowl game.
Well, hey, man, I appreciate the visit. We're going to send everybody out to CeeLo ESPN to visit with you. Great piece as well last week on the young man who perished a couple of years ago. I know the summertime, you're looking for stories to write. You know, it certainly struck Ray and I, my producer here, and Rajon Bennett. You wrote a unbelievable piece from down in Georgia on the tragedy there.
Yeah, that's one of those, man, that, you know, I'd wanted to do that story for a couple of years now. It had really stuck with me since he was murdered. Suicide murder in 2010, and you see kids like that who have everything in front of them, did everything the right way, and the kid dies trying to protect his family. And it's really neat to see that his legacy and his memory, you know, have just sort of continued on. His parents, or his mom, his family, his friends, they've all made sure his high school coach, even Vanderbilt, has done a really nice job of making sure that people don't forget what this young man stood for.
If you haven't seen it, go out to ESPN and check it out. Chris Lowe, ESPN senior staff writer, remembering a hero, the life and death of high school star Rajon Bennett. That's Rajan Bennett, and I think you'll find that piece to be compelling. Chris, thanks for the visit, man. Stay cool here this summer. It'll be football in no time, man.
Yes, sir. Hey, good catching up with you.
You got it. CeeLo ESPN, the way to find Chris Lowe out on Twitter. You can find me, Nasty, at WNST.net 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Simply download the TuneIn Radio app or use the buyatoyota.com audio vault anytime, anywhere. We come in crystal clear. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, as well as Nasty at WNST.net. Facebook Live, we are streaming live whenever we're doing content, as well as on our WNSTV YouTube page. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.